Wake up your morning in a brand new way with the positive people, places, events, and things in and around your neighborhood and around the world. No matter where you live, your mornings are about to get better. It's the refreshing way to start your day. No doom or gloom, just bright sunshine no matter what the weather. Metro Magazine with Bonnie McDaniel. Inspiring, informative, intelligent, Ion. Positively the best way to start your morning. On a beautiful spring morning back in 1992 while driving to work, Candice Camille was cut off by another driver, causing an accident that would begin a journey that she never could have imagined. Having been admitted to the hospital because of a bump on the head that was suffered in the accident, X-rays and tests would reveal that her body had been harboring a terrible secret. Candice was diagnosed with adenoid cystic carcinoma, or tracheal cancer, which would subsequently cause her life to spiral out of control. And so today on Metro Magazine, Candice will share her story and her amazing journey to becoming whole and how she's using that experience to impact the lives of other people. Candice, thank you so much for inviting us to your lovely, I guess we can call this a wellness center.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And I'll tell you, since I've been here, I've just like come down. Is that kind of the plan for what you had in mind?
It really is. An interesting thing about this place, it's by design.
Okay.
So basically it was designed basically to take you to that very solace, tranquil place as soon as you walk through the door. So just to leave all the stresses behind you and just take a moment to settle down. So
yeah, and I know this has been quite a journey, and that's why we're talking to you today, because I want you to share that journey, because something tells me maybe you weren't always this serene. That maybe there was, because most people I meet, including myself, there was that moment in life, that period in life when we were just bouncing off the walls. And when I first met you, I met you actually through a mutual friend. I thought to myself, wow, she's so calm. And being the person that I am and the kind of work I do, I'm immediately taken to, there's a backstory.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the biggest things, for those of us that have that high personality, high A dominance, and you're consistently on the go, energetic. So I was one of those consistently go high, running around, just energized. Call me the Energizer Bunny. So I never stopped going and going and going. I always thought there was something to do. But in 1992 I got diagnosed with tracheal cancer, ACC. And when things like that happen to you, it make you sit down, think, especially when you're set with there's life and death situations, and you think about it, all the things that you thought that was important no longer is
helps you to
important.
put things in perspective. And it's interesting, I was sharing when we were introducing you, the fact that it wasn't your going for a regular checkup or anything that caused it. It was one of those moments when you thought something else was happening, and actually something in the complete opposite was going on in your life. So talk about that morning, because tell me, what was it like when you got up that morning?
Well, got up late as we usually do, running around, getting kids ready for school and thinking you have time and realizing that you don't. My boss was already fussing at me for being late. So I got my kids off and I got in the car, and something that normally takes me 40 minutes to get to work, I figure I'd get there in 25.
Isn't that always the case with us, running around?
Just running and just not stopping. And I got in my car and I was headed to work, and I was driving, and by all rights I had a lead foot that morning, and someone cut me off. And to keep from hitting them, I hit my brakes pretty hard. That made the car spiral out of control. I didn't hit another car, but I ran into a tree. And it literally hit me on the head. I mean, my head hit the steering wheel. And this was back before airbags was really, really big, so no airbags, but my head did hit the steering wheel. And even as the ambulance, when they came, I was fussing at the woman, like, I need to just get in my car and go get her and then get to work. And but they was like, no, ma'am, you're a little dazed, so we really have to take you to the hospital. And so when I got to the hospital, I was still fussing, like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna get fired. if I don't get to work, just let me go. I feel fine. And it was like, no, you had a concussion, and we just want to take some x-rays.
Did you really have a concussion?
I did not.
Okay,
No,
but
no.
they thought maybe, yeah. Because anytime there's a head injury, you never know what the impact is, usually until a little bit later.
A little later. And it wasn't a concussion, but what they found out was a spot on my trachea. When they did the x-ray. And the x-ray tech and the radiologist, when they read the film, they just simply said, maybe you need to go check with the pulmonologist. There's something on your throat.
Now, stop for a moment, because you are in that's what you're trained to do. And was that the kind of work you were doing at the time?
Yes, I'm a respiratory therapist, pulmonary technologist by trade. So I took care of patients with all kind of respiratory diseases.
So what were your thoughts then when they said, oh, you maybe want to go take a look at this? What came to mind?
Nothing. I was like, okay, I'll talk to one of the doctors in the morning when I get to work.
Now, had there been any indication that there might be something amiss? Like,
I was coughing, doing a lot of coughing, but we're always trying to diagnose ourselves, especially for those of us that's in the medical field. So, I just thought it was bronchitis. You go get some over-the-counter medication, or you're in the hospital, you may say to one of the doctors, I'm coughing, take a treatment, so think nothing of it. And one time I did cough up blood, but it wasn't frank. So I figured I had been coughing so much.
That maybe it irritated your throat or something.
Exactly. So I felt one of the membranes, just burst, and that was that. And that probably happened a week or two earlier before I had the accident.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it happened, and the next day, because I did go home that day, I didn't make it to work that day.
So did you get fired?
No, but I was like, I drove really slow the next day, making sure I get there, and told my boss when I called them and tell them I had an accident. And they're the type, when you're in corporate like that, I need to see a note from the doctor.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I had to bring all my hospital reports in that I really was in the accident. So I talked to one of the pulmonologists there, and I told him, with the x-ray. So he told me to get the films and then come in and talk. So set up an appointment. And I still set up an appointment about a week later, because I didn't think anything of it.
Okay. Okay.
And we went.
So you get the test results back, and so you go to have the film.
Yes, so they did another x-ray, and then they did a CAT scan, and they saw a spot. So he did see the spot that was on my trachea, and he says, okay, we need to have you come in for further testing. So we went for the blood test, then you go for bronchoscopy, where they actually stick the camera down in your lungs and see what's going on. And that's where it was actually discovered, because they did a biopsy.
So was it in the lung or in the trachea?
It was in the trachea, right on the trachea.
Okay.
So, but they went and checked all through my lungs and everything. And he says that there's a nodule or lesion that was there, and that they're going to take a biopsy and, and see, and being in that field and have been a bronchoscopy assistant, for the doctors and everything, I knew everything what was going on. I wasn't afraid at that moment.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. And probably about when they took the sample and sent it to pathology, and when he called me back and he said, you and your husband need to come in.
Okay.
At that point, I knew
what was that moment like for you?
something's wrong.
Okay. Okay.
But
what were your thoughts and what was your husband's reaction when you told him the doctor wanted you to come in?
he just says, babe, what's going on? I said, they see something on my throat, but it's nothing. I've been coughing. It's from the cough. So we're just going to see what it is, and I'm going to get some medication, and I'm going, we're going back home. I became the normal patient. I didn't think anything of it. I really didn't. I didn't think cancer, none of that stuff. I just went to the doctor, and when I saw his face, then I knew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about the conversation. What was the air like in the room when he talked to you? Tension.
It was thick. It was anticipated, like, okay, when I saw the doctor's face, something's really wrong here. And I said to myself, okay, they found cancer.
So you knew?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but my husband didn't know at the time. For me, they knew.
Okay.
So I said to the doctor, can I talk to my husband outside for a minute? And he said yes, and I took him out. And so my husband was like, you don't know that. You're not a doctor.
Wow.
You don't know.
Okay.
And I says, I just want to prepare you for what's about to come. I said, because for so many years that I worked in this, and I remember being in that same space with some of the patients that have come in. So I thought, oh my gosh, now I become one of my patients.
Wow, wow. So you get the results back, you have the conversation with the doctor. What was the next thing that took place?
What are we going to do?
Okay.
What
was the procedure that they recommended, and talk a little bit about that?
Well, they recommend, of
cycle.
course, chemo, you know, the radiation, the medications that you can take. There were some oral meds that you start with at, you know, at home that you take. And it's a process that you go through in terms of weeks of therapy. So your therapies are pretty much set up. I was willing to go through this therapy, especially the start of it, to go through the medications at home. I did that. And I went back again for more bronchoscopies and the recheck and everything. And it wasn't shrinking the way that they thought it should.
So the idea for the meds was to shrink
the tumor, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it wasn't shrinking the way that they thought that it would. So then you go to the next step, which is chemotherapy.
Okay.
You go through chemotherapy, and I was going in once a week to get the chemo. And you know, for me, that it was just the worst.
Okay.
It was the worst. And from chemotherapy to radiation, and we tried all of those therapies, and it went on for a matter of months, long time, and still not shrinking the way that they wanted it to. So it hadn't metastasized to my lymph nodes or anything like that. So the doctors thought that surgery was possibly necessary for, and you have to, this was probably about 13, 14 months later, that surgery was necessary, the next step for doing anything, because they wasn't sure what would happen to you, because you don't know in your body. So they figure as long as it was localized, they can take it out, and that was it. You know, me being the who I am and asking the questions, you had to give me like more than a 50% guarantee. Okay, so basically, you know, me being the way that I am, and I basically just told them, you know, I need to have more than a 50% chance of you telling me if you're going to cut my throat out, because that's what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
That you're going to get all this cancer and I'm never going to have to worry about it again in life. And they couldn't give you that. Of course, they can't give you that kind of guarantee. But what I knew for sure is that having the surgery on your throat to take your larynx out, so my mind went ballistic in terms of the outcome.
Because you would lose your voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I taking the larynx out. Not only that, I was more worried about the trach, more so than losing my voice. That hit me later.
So the using your tracheal passage would mean that you would be permanently set up with a tube? Is that the idea?
Well, maybe permanently and maybe not, because over time when you do have the tracheotomy introduced to you, that you sometimes can get them off, but you still have the stoma that's there, so you would always have a hole in your neck.
Okay, yeah, that would probably freak me out too.
But what freaked me out more so was that I was going to become one of my patients.
Okay.
And I went through, so you go through all these phases of why, no, are you kidding me? This can't be happening to me right now. I'm going to have a hole in my neck. You're telling me there's no guarantee. I went crazy. I may be on a ventilator. I can't breathe. And all this stuff, and no, I can't throw that on my family. I absolutely refuse to do this.
What was your husband's reaction when he realized you had cancer and your children? How were your children?
They were young, so they were 9 and 13. So they
really they knew, but didn't really know the extent of what you were about to go through. What was your husband's reaction?
Oh, he was ready to sign. Where do we sign?
To get this thing out.
Yeah, let's
and make
get
it go away.
Yeah, make it go away.
Yeah.
And so I'm there between my husband and the doctor, and my husband is like, okay, when do we get started? We're going to do this tomorrow. And you kind of fade away.
Yeah.
And I just got this whole fog over me, and my mindset went to me being with the trach on a ventilator, and happened to have my husband and now my kids, because I shielded them from everything that was going on.
It's interesting how we women do that, isn't it? We really are the nurturers, the caregivers, and we don't want, I know I do that with my husband. I spoon feed or give him only what he needs to know because we don't want them to worry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
And I didn't want that for them, but all he heard was, do it, because at the time the doctor says, well, this is the next step. There is no guarantee of anything else. If you don't take this, you can continue on the medications. You can only do chemo, but for so long in the radiation. And after that, so basically what I heard was that if you don't do this, you're going to die.
So what was your decision?
I told my husband, I was like, no, we're not doing this. He was like, well, what do you mean? Did you hear him say? I said, he didn't say I was going to die, but basically that's what he's saying. So I said to him, then let's go home.
Wow. So what was your plan at that moment?
To go home and die.
Wow.
To go home and prepare myself to die. I said, then we have some preparations that we need to do, because I choose not to live that life. You know, the doctors, of course, was saying it's a possibility. But in my mind, I'm playing the odds. I was like, no, I'd rather be dead
than to have to
live with this life
through
that I live right now. I said, because I lived through this life with my patients. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
So you decide to go home to die. And when did that moment of clarity happen, first of all? And the moment when you decided, you know what, I choose to live. What was that like? And tell me that moment. Explain that moment to us.
That moment was basically a girlfriend of mine that always was there, somebody in your corner that came to pray for me.
Okay.
She did intercessoral prayer for me, and I didn't even know what praying meant at that time. And she would come, and I would tell her off badly, I didn't want to hear about God, because everything that we went through, I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't want to hear it. And she would always say to me, you know, you better stop that. You better stop talking about God like that, because he's going to strike you down.
Oh, God. You were a bad sister.
Yes, I really was, but I figured everything that I went through, if you tell me about this good God, this, supernatural human being, how did I get here?
Right,
so that was my thing, lived a horrific life till now. I thought my life was finally in a good space, and now you're going to knock me down? I don't hear anything about you and your God. And
you know what's interesting about that statement, because I think most people, when they find themselves at those moments, those watershed moments when everything is just going crazy in their lives, they have that moment when they're like, if there was God, or if you're there, then all of the things that human beings normally say. But I think what is interesting about that statement, because once you get on the other side, you realize that's when God really shows himself. He doesn't show himself in our calm moments, serene moments. He really shows himself when things are crazy. So anyway, I interrupted you, but I just thought
and I agree with you, because, and she just kept on, and I was like, I wasn't a praying woman. I didn't believe in God, didn't know enough about it. We went to church when I was little, but never learned enough to really understand what the Spirit was. And I fought her tooth and nail. I told
Thank God for friends.
I told her off every single day. And one day she says, and I was going through, the illness was taking its course, and I was in the bed most of the time. Very little movement going on without help. And, and I sent my kids away, but the thing is that this was it. It was just preparing yourself. And she says, and she would say to me, if you don't get it together and you don't start praying, you're going to die. I said, well, he already told me that. So it is what it is. But one day I listened to her. And I said to her, I I don't know anything about this prayer stuff. We went to church and we heard the art thous and all and didn't understand it. I said, so I know the 23rd Storm because it was beaten to us when we were little. I said, so that's the only one I remember. And she says, no, it's good to know that, but you just talk to God just like you're sitting here talking to me.
Exactly.
And he says, just let him know, let him in your life, and let him know that you need him, you need his help. And I was like, just like that. And one night I was in a lot of pain, and back then we had Sesta-Cal, like today they have Insure, and that was what was my nutritional needs, the things that I can possibly get down. And one night I laid in the bed, and I says, all right, I'm going to try this praying thing. And I laid down. I said, well, not a specific prayer. I said, God, if you exist, and that's how I opened it up. I said, she just told me I need to talk to you, just as I'm laying here. So I said, I'm in a lot of pain, so can you shoot me some bail? New York, because we was like, okay, can you take this pain away? Just give me some relief. Oh, God. And I says, I'm really tired, and I says, I can't do this by myself anymore. I says, Katrina told me that you had a good space. So I just need a favor from you. Can you take me to your space, called heaven, or give me the strength to just get it together so I can make sure that my kids are okay. I said, so I surrender and turn all that over to you. Amen. And that was it.
That was your prayer.
That was my prayer. And I got up probably a few minutes later, and I was like, okay, God, one more thing. Katrina told me to make sure I end this prayer like this: in the name of Jesus, in Jesus' name, amen. So that's the piece that I forgot.
Wow. And you know what? And on that note, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Metro Magazine.
Pure Euphoria.
Hi, I'm Candice Camille. Welcome to Pure Euphoria, your home away from home.
Pure Euphoria, a one-of-a-kind B&B located in the heart of historic Fort Washington, Maryland, and minutes away from downtown Washington, D.C. Wellness and togetherness are the core of the Pure Euphoria experience. Enjoy tranquil private moments in one of our 4 luxurious guest rooms, each distinctly decorated by themes inspiring restfulness and relaxation. Stay with us. Premium bedding with just the right touches to make you feel like Pure Euphoria is your home away from home. Indulge and celebrate you. Local professionals love taking advantage of our suite of services to enhance their stay. Pamper yourself today. Relax. Grab a good book and escape to a world of your desire, uninterrupted. Curl up in your room or claim your space next to the fireplace. We welcome you. The Pure Euphoria experience is nothing less than a life-changing and life-reaffirming moment. The formal dining room is the heart of the bed and breakfast, where the delectable breakfast fare begins, where friendships are cultivated and businesses are launched. Also a gathering place for an unforgettable private Sunday brunch with family and friends. And to complete your stay at Pure Euphoria, treat yourself to one of our wide array of euphoric massages, manicures, pedicures, and facial services.
I love that Pure Euphoria is a place where I can just relax, unwind, and just be myself. I just really love the way it feels when I even just come through the door. It's really amazing.
And I just love coming here, fellowshipping with other women that I meet, talking about ideas, how to grow my business.
And I like it that it's a safe place where you can get wellness not just for your body, but for your mind and spirit.
If you are a businesswoman and you can find yourself stressed, this is the place to come and de-stress.
I love coming to Pure Euphoria because it's a place of peace and solitude, a place to just get away from it all and relax.
Pure Euphoria delivers a euphoric getaway experience like no other. Whether you're looking for a relaxing weekend escape, a special celebration location, an idyllic spot for a girlfriend getaway, or a corporate team building retreat, a stay at Pure Euphoria will exceed all your expectations.
Let us be your home away from home here at Pure Euphoria. We hope to see you soon.
For more information, please call or visit us online.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money.
And we're back. If you're just joining us, we're sitting this morning talking to Candice Camille, who is sharing her amazing story to wellness, wholeness, and it didn't just happen. You really had to journey to get there. And that's I think, usually the case with most people. And when we went to break, you were talking about that moment when you decided that, hey, I really don't have as much control as I think I do. So talk about that.
Absolutely, and that was the moment that I really turned it over to God, but wasn't aware that
the God that you didn't believe in.
That I didn't believe in, and I did it, and I went to sleep that night.
Okay.
You know, after I said what Katrina told me was the prayer, just talk to him. And I actually woke up the next morning, and you know, a lot of elders in our life, they used to say, you know, you're gonna wake up dead. So I thought that's exactly what happened. You know, I used to hear, you know, some of the older people, and it's like they would make that statement but not understand, like, you can't be awake if you're dead. But literally I woke up and thought that God had taken me to heaven, because when I opened my eyes, I just heard the birds outside. And I just says, man, that is a God, because he took my whole room with me as I looked around, because I still hadn't really was, I guess, conscious enough to
Why
understand.
did you think you had died?
Because that's what I had prepared to do the night before.
Okay, but you were really awakened, but was there something different? Were you not in pain? What was different that...
I don't remember if I was in pain or not on that morning.
But there was something different
Yes,
that you felt.
There was a stillness. There was a stillness, and I laid in bed, because that's where I spent most of my days at. But able to do a little bit of wiggle, and that's what it was. And I sort of wiggled around the bed like.
Now you said you, not to interrupt you, but you said you heard the birds. Had you heard them before, or had you not taken the time to listen to the birds?
Wow, I didn't take the time to listen. Okay. I mean, I knew they were there off in the distance and you can hear them, but on that morning, I really heard the birds.
You listened.
I listened and heard the birds.
Okay.
So that's why I thought I was no longer, it was a different type of a sound. Can't explain it, but it was different. And when I looked around and says, oh no, when I heard the birds, and I looked around and I was like, no, I'm still in my bed, you know, so I'm still alive. And why? Because I specifically said,
wow,
that, you know, so, okay, so I'm not in your space like, you know, my girlfriend said that I would be, so maybe you're gonna give me that strength to, you know, make sure my kids are okay, because those are the two things that I asked for.
So you felt at that moment that this was your reintroduction to life, if you will, and that, did you feel that you were going to be okay?
No, not till I fell on the floor.
Okay, so talk about that.
Okay, so when I fell on the floor, because, you know, for a very long time it wasn't a lot of movement. You know,
you fell on the floor to pray, or you fell on the floor because you couldn't stand up?
I don't know. I still didn't know anything about the praying yet. I just, you know, I went to go try to get out of the bed by myself.
That morning?
That morning.
Okay.
And most of the time, you know, my husband was there to help me get up, you know, but this morning I'm going to try to do it myself. And I did, but I didn't.
Wow.
I fell on the floor. Until this day, I can honestly say God threw me on the floor.
He'll do that.
Threw me on the floor. But here's where the moment came.
Okay.
It hurt so good.
Okay.
Because when I hit the floor, I was in a lot of pain. And I laughed and cried all in the same breath. My husband came running in the room and he says, well, how in the heck did you get down there? And I literally said, God threw me on the floor.
So your husband's probably thinking, oh God, what are we dealing with here?
Right, because we weren't to believe in people. So it wasn't, you know, that something that we talked about, the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I knew that there was a God. And in that moment, I wanted to live and I wanted to do something instead of just lay here and die to make myself better. So now today, when I got the relationship with God and understanding to have this faith without doing the works, that it did not work.
So talk to me about your healing, because I want to get to some of the other wonderful things you're doing before we run out of time.
Well, after that, I begin to want to live. So one thing I know for sure is that in order to make the body strong, is that you had to feed it and you had to move it. And I wasn't doing either or.
Okay.
The nutrition was by way of Sustacal that you drink, but you had to get it to throw down. There was a lot of emesis and you were just throwing it up, so it wasn't a lot. So I took on to just drink as much as I can, throw it up, something will stick. And that's what I did. So I got very focused on healing myself, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I couldn't walk, I literally crawled. So so I crawled, so that was my movement. And my husband was very guarded, so he kept me kind of thought I was going to hurt myself, but I was determined to just move. So when I walked away from Western medicine, that I didn't want to take this anymore, I sought out alternative healing. Things like massages and acupuncture and herbalists and holistic doctors and stuff like that. And that's what I went to work on. And I understood that I really had to go deep inside myself and take God with me, but understanding that it was God that was deep already inside of me, and I needed to let him out. And I let him out.
And healing, I would say, and I don't know if you would agree with me, is spirit. It's really knowing that you have that power of God in you to heal you. And
oh my.
Yeah. Whether it be mental, whether it be physical.
But the thing about it is, everything is mental. Everything is mental. And when you get to that open space, because you got to get open before you can get clear. So when I got to that open space and I let the Spirit of God in through me, I began to get clear. So I understood exactly what it meant now.
So talk to me then, because you just bring up an interesting point. There are a lot. We're talking about the mental capacity and the idea of the control that our mental state has on our physical being. Talk to me then about people who are angry, people who are dealing with emotional issues, and talk about the impact, because I know a lot of the work that you're doing focuses on that. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, the impact is with that is that most of the time we're closed. So we sort of get stuck there where we are when we get angry, if we're stressed, and the things that we're dealing with, but it's all in our mind. And a lot of the times we think we have control of our minds, but we don't.
Right.
It's something else, another force that's taken over. And when you get stronghold or in bondage by that force, until you make a decision to want to be better, nothing's going to change for you. So a lot of times when I'm speaking, or the women that comes here, in order to help them get to any physical better state in their life, I want to know about what's in your mind, because that's where it's all going to take place. Weight loss most of the time is just a bonus to just being healthy. It is.
So talk about your process of getting to that place, first of all, of being whole, because that's really what healing is being whole. There's some things that are off kilter. Talk about your process of getting to that place.
At that time, again, I thought I was working on my physical body, but actually I was working on my mind. I was working on my mental body, because what I understood is that everything that I did from this point to learn how to walk again, to run again, I had to make up my mind and get focused on doing it, and I had to get focused on me. So a lot of the times we women, we're not focused on ourselves.
No. We're taking care of the kids, the husband, the friends, everybody else.
And then I became the priority. So I knew what it was to have God and then me. See, we're taught to, have God, the family, and then your career. I changed that for myself and understood it, that in order for us to be better in life, that we needed to make ourselves a priority. Like there's God, then there's you, then your family, and then your career in business. So I literally went to work on me. I laser focused in on what it was going to take to make me better. And I knew that physical fitness was the one thing that can alter my mental state, my spiritual state, my financial state, believe it or not, and just for what I believed. So I went to work on that physical limb, the spiritual limb, the emotional limb, all at the same time. So it was like your mind, body, and spirit just had to come together in order for this to work.
So let me ask you then, you did not take the treatment. You opted not to take it. The cancer, when you left the doctor's office or the last treatment appointment that you had, it was still there.
Yes.
You were basically waiting to die until your wonderful friend, I hope she's still your friend today.
Yes, she is.
Intervened, because she was actually your angel.
Yes.
And brought you to the point of, first of all, helping you to see and acknowledge that there is something greater than yourself. Where's the cancer? You're starting to crawl and make yourself eat and all of that. What happened with all of that?
How about that? The process of it, because I went to herbal medicine, is what we call it, traditional. And I started with the herbs and the treatments, and I started reading on what makes the blood better in the body, you know, because that's what's flowing through us. A lot of the times on the inside of us, there's a lot of chaos going on, and the blood is not flowing in that evolutionary circle that we needed to get to all our organs. So I started reading a lot on the body and what makes it better. What herb was this? Then I went to herbalists, and we started doing treatments and non-traditional treatments, and I took a lot of medicine that the insurance and stuff that don't pay for because it was considered food. So, and that's what it was. I went to the best food possible that I knew and was taught at the time from what I call my team. My husband called them my witch doctor team. But by doing over the months, because for alternative medicine, it generally takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to really, for you to see any type of effect. And I still do it to this day for years.
It's interesting. You remind me of a conversation I heard. Pam Grier was diagnosed with cancer, and story not the same, but there are some similarities. And she chose the route that you ultimately took, and it was advanced for her. And she's still kicking many, many, many years later. So you went for the herbal treatment, and how long did that take?
Probably about 1.5 years. It took a long time, but more so than anything, I think the will to now wanting to live. That because before I really had surrendered into death, and when I hit the floor, I realized there was still life in me.
And you know, you just said something that just made this flash of light go off in me internally. You said you had willed yourself to death. And what that flash of light when you said that meant for me was that many people will themselves every single day of their lives to death. Not a physical death necessarily, but surrendering themselves to not being able to do better in life, not being able to have good relationships, all of those things that help us or rather hinder us from having the full life that we were designed to have. So talk a little bit more about,
you know, and
switching that negative thing off in your head.
And basically that's what it is, that negative thing, you know. And the negative thoughts are just the spirit of confusion and just negativity. You have to talk to it. And the thing about it, you have to...
She says you have to talk to it. Tell it to go
you
away.
You gotta tell it to go away and be adamant about it. And that's with you making the decision, because when you make a decision that you want better, nothing can happen until you make the decision. Most of us are stuck on the fence, and some of us want to stay that way because we don't know better, or we're not willing to listen to better. And we have to listen to ourselves and just listen to the spirit that's on the inside of you. You have to be willing to let it through. So that's where the openness come in, because a lot of us sit on the fence, you know, like, I'm scared, I don't know what to do.
Fear's a bad thing.
Fear, oh my God. And it's like you're on
crippling.
that, crippling to say the least. I look at it as being on this barbed wire fence. And you know how when you're on a barbed wire fence, if you move left or right, you get stuck, you're bleeding. So most of us are literally walking around dead because we have bled out. So we're on that fence, and each way we turn, we are being stuck by something else that's making the blood, just the life, just flow up out of us. So we become that zombie-like, the walking dead. Things that get repetitive, you're not thinking anymore, you're not willing to do. You hear this statement, well, it is what it is. It's not what it is if you decide to make it better.
Exactly.
And that's what it comes to, that choice. We have choices. Do you want better? And then you go about doing the work. Most of us fall back on, I'm just going to pray about it. Yes, from what I know about prayer, you pray about it, but now it's up to you to do something about it.
Exactly.
What are you going to do? I decided I wanted to live, so I went to work. I learned how to walk again. Not only did I learn how to walk, I used to go out to a park and walk, and it was a race. I mean, it was a trail that was about 2.5 miles long, and I said one day I'm going to run this trail. And I could barely walk then when I said that. But I crawled up this hill every single day. So one day I walked up that hill. And then one day I ran that whole trail.
Wow.
Today I run every single day. So when you make up your mind to do something, we do it. And my whole thing is, you make up your mind to do something for somebody else. Why can't you have this fling with yourself?
And hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break, because we're going to, when we come back, we're going to talk about how she has taken that experience, that what could have been a negative experience and really a death experience, and turned it into life, not just for herself, but for the people around her. We'll be right back in a moment.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money.
Oh, sweetheart. Can I give you a hand?
No thanks, Dad. I got it.
Okay. I'm gonna go fix the lamp in your room.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
So when we went to break, you were sharing with us when you made that decision that you wanted to live and the process that you went through in getting there. So you said it took you about 1.5 years to get rid of the cancer. So I have a question though. You went back to get tested again, and so what was the reaction of the doctors?
What are you doing?
Wow.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Because when I go, I would still see my doctor every month and, get the blood tests and so forth and so on. And then I didn't go for a couple of months into it, and I stayed on my therapy that I was doing. And I went back and the blood test started, got less and less, and then finally, probably about 1.5 years later, of doing what I was doing, because I made food my drug. So food became my drug.
What kinds of foods were you eating?
Oh, all whole foods.
Okay.
I mean, everything green that you could have possibly imagined. I mean, except for me going out to pull the grass up out of the ground, I ate it. Everything fresh, whole, nothing processed, nothing canned, nothing bottled. I cooked everything every day. I walked away from meat. I was no longer a carnivore. I became a pescatarian, then an all the way vegetarian, straight to a vegan, because when you start getting healthy, you start going you get crazy with it sometimes.
And it's interesting because when I was 25, I decided, and I'm going to tell you how crazy this was, at least for the people who knew me in their minds. Because my grandfather raised animals when I was a little girl. So I grew up, everybody ate. If you didn't have a side of beef on your plate, there was something wrong with you. But the interesting thing, when I was 25 years old, I realized I had an aversion to meat. Because when I would eat it, it had to be cooked very well, and I would just cover it with ketchup or anything to mask the taste, because I didn't like the taste of it. And so finally I decided, okay, Bonnie, this is crazy. So I stopped eating it. So I'm kind of at your pescatarian state, in that I do eat seafood, but the meat, and I guess maybe 3 years ago I cut out the chicken, and I don't miss it. And people ask me all the time, Bonnie, your skin is so nice, or your whole body is different, the way you feel. I noticed when I stopped eating chicken, because I used to have really bad allergies, they went away. I no longer have allergies, not to the point of where I'm incapacitated. Pollen will bother me, make me, every now and then I get a little headache, but it just completely changed. And I am totally with you in the whole foods. I keep a garden, where I grow my own foods when it's warm enough. But so I fully believe in your philosophy.
Well,
but, go ahead.
That is called clean eating.
Yeah.
Because it's what the body's used to. It's because it functions better. When we eat meat and the things that the body's not used to, it has to overwork itself.
Right.
So your organs wind up overworking itself. So when you get back to just earthly things, I tell folks, if it's walking across the earth, I don't eat it. It has to grow.
And it's interesting talking about meat, and this is not a commercial against cattle growers or anybody who does this for a living, but just talking about my experience and what I have observed. You being a practitioner, talk about the process of digesting meat and how long it takes, because there are a lot of people out there who have digestive issues. There's been a lot of colon cancer, especially in our community. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, and it's by virtue of what we eat, because of a lot of the times our systems is overworked, so it's not working to push the food through the way that it should. And even when you're talking about, defecation of bowel movements, I talk to a lot of people who thinks going to the bathroom every 2 or 3 days is normal.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't realize every time you eat, you should go to the bathroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not normal. So what happens if you're not doing it, the food is sticking.
Right.
So you have to think about your inside of your body just as if it was an oven. So if you had meat sitting out in the heat, it just rottens. So inside of our bodies, that's what happened to it. So now it becomes a part of our bodies. So our cells take on that fermented food that's sitting there, that's rotting, not over weeks, but over months, over years, because we just keep getting built up.
Built up. By the way, I'm sorry if you all have not eaten breakfast yet. I know this is a morning show, but what can I say? It is what it is.
And it just stays, and it's something that we don't talk about it, but it's so very important, and it stays, and that's what happens. Meat, pretty much, they say, stay in your system for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long time to have a piece of steak hanging on, and so it's just there, and it's just a part of your body. So over the years, it just sticks along your colon wall, and it just stays there, and that's why a lot of times we get all clogged up and it closes off.
And the other thing too, if you look at other cultures, when they have meat that's about this big, and there are vegetables and other things that are built around it. If you look at the American diet, I mean, who eats 3 pounds of beef and a burger? That's like a lot of meat, and then normally there are no veggies. If there are, they're very little. So,
and I think a lot of the times we know, because I've talked to, even here, I've talked to a lot of women that they know what they're supposed to do, but there's a disconnect until we talk about something that's going to happen to you. So that's why I even come to this place in my life right now.
So yeah, talk about the work you're doing
Yeah,
for women and for people in general.
Yeah,
I want to talk
just
about
bodies. I absolutely love bodies because a well-trained body at its best will do anything for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just movement, just the whole philosophy of taking care of your whole self. So in taking care of your whole self, it starts with your body though, by virtue of what you're feeding it, the food, the thoughts, the things, everything that we're putting into it. But food plays such a big part on keeping our organs healthy. So I actually, after getting healed and learning how important it is to really take care of yourself, I promised God, you know, and when we started our relationship, that I was going to teach this, that I was going to pay it forward, what I learned about just being well.
And that brings us to this beautiful place that we're sitting in right now. And I call it a wellness center. I don't know if that's what it's classified as, but what I'll tell you, when you walk through the doors, you feel like you're entering a space that's really different. It's very calm. You want to come and sit down and breathe, literally. And so you're using this center to do what?
Well, I'm using it to actually do just that, to have you exhale and just let the space seduce you into a new state of well-being.
I like that seduction. Okay.
Yeah, because we need something to set us down. So going to places and reading books, and I mean just going where you can walk away, or I wanted to have a space where you can actually spend a night and absorb just what you need to just be better. So, you know, I wanted to just go around the world speaking about it. Then I told God I wanted I wanted to be on a platform. And, you know, generally what comes back was like, okay, build your own platform. So that's why this space exists.
That's what you've been doing.
And that's what I've been doing.
And I know that you have all kinds of groups that come and meet to talk about not only business development, but talk about how to get to that place of serenity that you're in, so that they can be better at the work that they're doing. So, you know, talk about some of the things that you offer here.
Well, you know, we offer just that space, and it's local. It's so local. Generally, we had to get on a plane to go someplace to just be still. And I wanted to have a space locally where, especially women, because we are that nutritious caregivers, doing for everybody but ourselves, and a space where you can come and get what you need. You know, come in and sit down if that's all you need. Come in and let's talk about the things that's going to make you better. Because if you ask me to define wellness, I would just say it means whole. So let's talk about being whole, and what is it? It's not just exercise, and it's not just losing weight. So I'm a personal trainer, so most people are talking to me about losing weight. And I'm going to tell you, losing weight is actually a bonus to being well.
And you know, the other thing too, I think we do our bodies such a disservice when every year, January normally, I'm going to go on a diet. You're shocking your body over and over and over again. That's not being kind. You're beating it up. So I love the idea of just it really becoming a lifestyle, because people ask me, it's like, you know, do you diet? And I'm like, no.
It's your life.
It's I get up every day and I think about, I heard, and Lord, I can't believe I'm quoting Kim Kardashian. But she was talking about tattoos, but I can take this and parlay it into the point I'm getting ready to make. Someone asked her if she had a tattoo, and she said, no, I would never put a tattoo on a Bentley. And you have to look at your body, because that's what she thought of herself. I'm not going to let anybody carve on my body. You have to look at your body as a Bentley or something that you think is very valuable. You would not put cheap gas in a Bentley.
Oh. On that note, talking about gas, because that's what I refer to when I'm often speaking, that we put better gas in our cars than we put food in our bodies.
Exactly.
And the thing about the Bentley and how you see yourself, that's absolutely wonderful, because most of the time we got such self-hatred going on. You know, and I think when I said that I started to have a fling with myself, I'm loving it, because you think about when we were growing up, when we were first dating, you know, how we felt when we had our boyfriends and what went on. We were like just enthralled with men. And I say, you know what, why not take that same feeling and parlay it into yourself, like you said. So I say, have an affair with yourself, you know, because just like you said, It's you. You have to love where you are in every part of it, no matter what it is, you know, every inch of you, dimple, piece of fat, whatever it is about you, it's you, it's your heart, because we can change the outside of this body, but changing your heart, that's a whole different story.
Really, yeah, it's very, very different.
Yeah.
And so do you offer any personal seminars, because we're running out of time, that you have? Is it available on your website where people can go to see the types of services you offer?
Yeah. Well, we offer seminars where you can come in a group, where you can sit down and have a seminar when I talk about my 8 doctors that you should visit every day. So it's like 8 docs a day keeps the meds away. So it's like you're learning how to just be better inside of naturality, what's natural to do, and you will never have to have a paid medical plan. It's a free medical plan. We have that seminar. We have the First Fridays Club that we do the first Fridays of every month.
Now, what is that about?
Well, that's about, we choose topics that we're all going through. Like the very first one was the game changer, like what's going on in your life. You know, I brought out the game of sorry, the game of trouble, the game of life. You know, we had Candyland, you know, we had Operation, because sometimes you have to surgically remove some of the things out of your life. And then we had authenticity, we had an unmasquerade party, just being genuine in the things that you have to take off and unmask in order to get better so you can move. Like this next month's coming up is about self-worth. So I tell people I want to introduce them to Darcy, and that's deserving, accepting, confidence, respect, confidence, esteem, and integrity. So that's Darcy, and it's about just being better and loving yourself where you are so change can take place. So we talk about can I versus I can. So can I means complacent and not improving, and I can means turning it around where you can initiate something, commit, have a good attitude, and it's just necessary. So you talk about moving into a better space in your life. And then we have just the personal trainings that you can come in and talk about just being better one-on-one. So like you said, instead of starting it at that first part of the year, instead of making resolutions, you can start a revolution inside of yourself to just being better every day. Because anytime you can step back, re-examine, reevaluate from where you are, so to get to where you want to go. So it's just starting. And a lot of times we like to call it a lifestyle, but I like to call it your life, because my lifestyle, even though we're healthy, is different.
Very different depending on where you are.
Exactly. So when you come here, you get to figure out what your life is, because my 1 + 1 don't equal your 2.
Wow.
So we sit down and we develop a program around your life, because that's what's going to make you better. Because when you make this huge change, you got to be better inside yourself.
And we are going to have to stop on that note. You know, I could stay here and talk to you all day, my dear. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your amazing story with our viewers this morning. And a couple of things I will promise you. I'm going to give the jump rope a shot. I'm not going to promise you, but I am definitely going to plan to come back and breathe just for a moment and really take in all of this beautiful space that you have made available to so many people. And on that note, we're going to end another segment of Metro Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the flip side. Have a good week.